I'm curious about this. What you think about this is these exhibition fights. When I'm thinking of KSI, Jake Paul, Logan Paul, this thing with Mike Tyson, are they testing for any banned substances in these fights because they're exhibitions? Do you know anything about this?
I heard that they were.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not an expert on this. I heard that they were. I don't know for sure if they're not, but I mean, I'm assuming that if they're being tested, they're going to be told when they're being tested, and then they just have to not take these things. But I mean, even in professional boxing, like we had Ryan Garcia fail for Austrian, which apparently was contaminated in some product that he was taking, and so do I really care? Like, just take whatever you want. It's not real boxing. Like when Jake Paul fights Mike Tyson is incentivized to let the rounds last as long as possible. Like if every round you get an extra $1 million, am I going to try to knock you out in the first round? You get $1 million if it lasts one round, or 10 million if it lasts 10 rounds. How long do you think I'm going to stay in there and box? I'm not going to try to win the fight. And so in Mike Tyson's boxing match, it's an exhibition. They're just playing. I don't believe any of those fights are real. I think that he would have paid those guys to take the fall. I don't believe any of this stuff.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, with the Mike Tyson thing, I remember his last 4 fights, and they were bad. Like he was having a hard time moving around. The one with Lennox Lewis was really bad. And I was watching him train recently, and he looks faster and in better shape than he did 10 years ago when he was like near the end of his career, 15 years ago. And the reason why I was asking the question is because I think Mike Tyson would have to be on TRT at this point to be 57 years old.
There's no way I believe he's natural.
Yeah.
I don't believe for a minute that Mike Tyson in his 50s is not going to be on TRT. Why would he not be on TRT? I don't even believe he was natural 30 years ago. So why would he be on?
Oh, really?
You don't?
Now? No, I don't believe Mike Tyson was natural when he was fighting back in the 90s.
Wow. Okay.
Interesting.
That's crazy.
Why do you think that?
Does he look like somebody that would care about the rules? I'm going to bite this guy's ear off. Does he look like somebody who's sane? He's going to do anything. He would do anything to get away with whatever he wants. I don't believe that this guy has like values, morals against taking steroids or not. I think he's going to do anything he could do to get away with it.
Right, but back then, even weren't they still testing for exogenous hormones at that time?
Do you think that those tests could detect everything? And for example, you can take testosterone for 51 weeks straight and stop for 3 days and pass the test. If it's
really okay,
it's not going to be in your system. Absolutely. Test suspension, it's in and out of your system so quick in a matter of days. This is a drug that you're supposed to inject 2 or 3 times a day. Testosterone, propionate, probably going to be out of your system within 2 or 3 weeks. Anavar, about 3 weeks. And so depending on the ester of the drug that you're using, you can take it for so long, so close to a meet. And so, for example, if you're doing a drug-tested bodybuilding show, and you know they're only going to test you on show day, you could take testosterone the entirety of the prep, stop a week out, and pass the test.
Wouldn't they see that your levels, though, are super physiological, though? Like, why would that matter?
It would be out of your system like this. So test suspension is based in water. So it's in your system within 15 minutes, and it's out within 24 hours.
Wow.
So it spikes real quick, and it's out. It's kind of like if you eat sugar, it's in and out real quick, versus if you eat fat, it takes a longer time to digest steak than, for example, a whey protein shake. And so when you're taking a testosterone, it's kind of like it's covered in an ice cube, testosterone, enanthate, or cypionate. It takes a long time for that ice cube to melt, and that's when the testosterone is getting your system. Versus test suspension, it's test without the ice cube blocking it, and so it's in and out like that. And trust me, I've done test suspension. 15 minutes later, you're in the gym, and you're like, holy shit. But the next day, you don't feel it. It's out.
Wow.
Greg, can you talk about this a little bit more? Maybe you have a little bit more insight. So say like Lance Armstrong, passing these doping things, and then later on them finding out that the sample was tainted. How is it that, and of course I've heard the speculation that the majority of NFL players, where I think it would help NFL players, not NBA players quite as much, but the majority of NFL players and Major League Baseball players at some point being on some performance-enhancing drug. What are they doing? Are they changing a molecule? Like, what are they doing in order to beat these tests?
The designer drugs,
well,
you mean?
First of all, the testing isn't good enough to detect these drugs early enough into the testing. So if you had a blood sample or a urine sample from 1990 and used the testing that's done in 1990, the drugs are so new that they can't detect it. But if you retest that blood or retest that urine 5 or 10 years later with more sensitive testing, they're going to say, wow, all you guys were cheating. But at the time, they didn't know that. And so as the testing gets better, the drugs get better, and every time there's an Olympics games, there's a new drug that no one's ever heard of that the athletes are using to beat these tests. And these are usually the most advanced countries. The poor countries, they don't have the technology to do so. And so, for example, with Lance Armstrong, he probably failed 500 drug tests if he was actually being used the right test, but the tests weren't sensitive enough to know what he was using.
Yeah, his is one of the most unique ones because then they found like the next 7 guys after him also failed the drug test, but because he won those Tour de France, he was the one having the most blowback against it. And it was
you
like,
see how the Tour de France is developed, the human
Yeah.
is not naturally meant to do that race.
Yeah.
And do actually
Yeah.
accomplish that naturally.
I mean, almost everyone in the Tour de France used drugs, various whatever it was, EPO or blood doping or whatever they want to call it. But I mean, this is a very difficult sport, and I mean, at the time, you basically had to do it. If you didn't do it, you had no chance of winning. Lance Armstrong's own team, they were encouraging the other athletes to do so. It's like basically, hey, if you want to be on our team, you have to drug up with us. Because think of it, you have 5 of them doing it and 5 not doing it. That's not going to work. You want everyone to be a team, camaraderie. Let's all blood dope. They pulled over the trailer to the side of the road and they injected the blood that they had withdrawn from their bodies 3 months prior. And so you're getting this dramatic boost in hemoglobin. You're getting more blood cells into your body. And it's called blood doping. They've done this since at least the 1980s. You add in a pint of blood to your body the day before the competition. Now you have all these extra red blood cells, you're going to go faster than ever.
Yeah. How deep do you think, the secret PED use goes? And do you think it's like ever going to really come out? Because especially now, a lot of speculation is that all the NBA players are using it, and that's how they're staying in for so long. Or like LeBron James is, 39 years old. He's still averaging 26 points a game. How deep do you really think this goes across, just all professional sports?
I really don't know. I wish I did. I wish I could give you a better answer, but my opinion is basketball players are not even playing full years anymore. Back in the old days, the guys would play 80 games in a year. Now they're sitting out, they're resting. So do I really think it's the drugs? I don't know. I kind of think that they're having better eating programs, training programs.
Yeah.
And is it really that impressive that at LeBron James at this age is averaging 26 points? I mean, look at the guy. Look how good he was. Look how talented he was as a teenager. Like, I remember LeBron James as a teenager and being like, oh my God, you need to buy his rookie card. It's going to be worth so much money. Like, this guy was so good at such a young age. Then, well, why isn't he still good? I would have expected him to be this good at this age.
Mm. I saw a video I thought was really interesting. It was 1% of guys, of gym goers, could actually bench press 225 pounds. Because I think a lot of people will judge themselves. Bench press max is probably the number one, right? Then after that would be like squat and deadlift, the thing that guys will measure each other against. But only 1% of guys are doing that. You mentioned 315. I've had situations where I'll get up to 295 and then my shoulder almost popped out. And you were talking about having bad genetics and how most people will not be able to bench press 315 pounds. It kind of depends more on how you look. I was talking to my girlfriend about this and I was like, would you rather be with a guy who looks like he could fight or a guy who could actually fight? And she's like, I'd rather be with a guy who looks like he can fight. So I was just curious if you could talk a little bit about this, about the rarity and how some guys maybe shouldn't measure themselves for some of these maxes.
Well, the reason people think everyone is so strong is because we keep getting inundated with the best of the best. We get shown the top 1% of the top 1%. And so the guys you get shown on Instagram or YouTube, or perhaps myself or Larry Wheels or some guy with a record. And so you think, oh, it's normal for these guys to lift this much. But the reality is hardly anyone at the gym is ever benching 315. When I go to the gym and I see 3 plates on each side, I'm immediately looking. I've been in a Joey Swoll video. What are you doing? Looking at it, because it's so rare, hardly anyone can do it. I can do over 315, but I used to be a world record holder in the bench press. All right, well, I still am actually, but so it's rare. There was a guy at the gym today, and he was bench pressing 315, and it was like 3 guys, and somebody was filming. The guy was about 230 pounds, and he did it for, I think, 3 reps. It's not easy to do that. And I know guys who are on steroids, and they'll never bench press 315.
Yes.
And these guys look good. They're competitors. They're in the competitions. 315 is freaking hard. And so why do we think that so many guys are doing this? Because, well, we see the best of the best.
Yeah.
But if you actually look at the average person, not the average gym goer, the average person, they're not even benching 135.
If you're watching this, I have a gift for you. Hit the link below and I will send you a private invite to my community for free.